Carroll, how did you become interested in cars? I mean, was this something?
I got from my father. My father was a rural mail carrier. He loved cars, and although he grew up before the era of cars, he was a rural mail carrier. He had a first thing I remember is a 28 Whippet, and I loved to stand up on the floorboard when we'd go on his mail route and ask him to go faster, Dad. And just always loved him. Never got over it.
Now, when you got your license, or before you got your license, now you didn't drive fast, though, did you?
Now, the day I got my license at 14 years old, I've been raising Cain with my dad to get my license. I was 14 years old. He had a 34 Dodge. I said, "Let me take you to work, Dad." He went to work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 5 o'clock I had a ticket for 80 miles an hour, and I didn't get to drive for 6 months.
And
how's that for stupidity?
Well, that sort of seems like it kind of set the course there. But you, instead of now, at some point you decided instead of paying tickets, you'd get paid for driving fast.
Yeah, I got out of the Air Force. I was a pilot for 5 years and fiddled around with businesses. I'm not an 8 to 5 guy. I can't be structured. So after 4 or 5 years, I said to myself and my family, I'm going to get into automobiles. It's the only thing that I ever think about all the time anyway. And I started driving sport cars with a friend of mine, Ed Wilkins, in Dallas. And he had a 48 MGTC. 3 years later, I was driving for the factory of Aston Martin in England. And I didn't drive race cars but about 10 years. But when I finished in 1960, I'd been on nitroglycerin pills for a couple of years with a heart problem. I won the national championship for about the 5th or 6th time, and said that's it. Just walked off. Didn't think before the race of when I was going to quit. But I walked off from Laguna Seca in Northern California, and started putting the Cobra program together. I'd been working on building my own car with several other situations before that. One of them was Ed Cole gave me 3 Corvettes one time, and I took them to Italy and put aluminum bodies on them. He called me one night and said, "Shelby, I never gave you those cars," and found out the chairman of the board had found out, and Zora Duntoff and a couple other guys had gotten to the chairman. They didn't want anybody but their GM guys building them, so that was that. And I didn't really get a chance. I tried 2 or 3 different things, but I really didn't get a chance until Ford came along with a little V8, the new little thin wall cast V8, and AC Cars ran out of Bristol engine, quit building engines. They were using little 120 horsepower Ford V6 in England, so I contacted them, contacted Ford, and only thing I had going at the time was a Goodyear tire distributorship that I'd gotten. Started riding on Goodyear tires in '58 when they first went back in. So when I quit, I moved to California, decided to build my own car, and a year and a half later, we were building 100 Cobras. Lee Iacocca loaned me $25,000 and told the guys to get me out of the office before I bit somebody if I thought I could build a car that could outrun a Corvette. And we did that. Then, God, that was easy to outrun those Corvettes. Let's go see if we can outrun Ferrari. So we had a good group of people. We put the Daytona Coupe together.
Can I just ask you one thing about that? When the Cobra came out, because I remember, I was a youngster, and I remember when that came out, and I bugged my dad to get a photograph of you,
yeah.
I think to interview you, and this was really something. Was I alone, or was this car really a phenomenon?
No, all this car was the same. It was built on the same parameters that you build cars that you want to win races today, and that is power to weight ratio. And we didn't have roll-up windows. It was a very stark. You either get to win races or you get to ride in comfort. And I decided to build a car that will win the races. You could drive it down the street, but you needed preparation H if you were going to drive it very far. So we originally wanted to build 100 of them. And we built 100, and then the demand was so we built another 500, and then we saw GM coming along with a Grand Sport, and we put a 427 engine and a new chassis. Some German guys back at Ford designed the 427 chassis, the first chassis designed on a computer. They did it at midnight because nobody at Ford would put up the money at that time to design a new car, and we knew that we better come up with something pretty good. And we went to Nassau, and the race was 2 laps old. Old Ken had a half a lap lead on these great Grand Sport Corvettes, but forgotten what happened. Blew a tire, hit a stump or something, and then they dropped out of racing. And I'm very sorry for that, because this 427 Cobra was so superior to the Corvette Grand Sport that I always felt bad that we didn't have a mono on that deal. But then when they dropped out of racing, we decided to try to go to Europe. We didn't have much money, and Castrol, Goodyear, kicked in some money. Ford kicked in a little. We built the Daytona Coupe. Ken Miles gave up a year of his life trying to make a racehorse out of a mule, because it wasn't, it really had to work hard on the aerodynamics. I should have listened to some other companies on the aerodynamics. Ford's Aeroneutronics, and Benny Howard, an old friend of mine. If I'd listened to him, we'd have been 6 months ahead. But we went to Europe and made it outrun the Ferrari GTOs, but mainly because of GTO, we had a probably honest 100 horsepower on them if we needed it. So we won the world championship with that, and after we won the world championship, I started not to even ship them home. Used race cars didn't used to be worth much, but there was 6 of them. One of them sold for $6 million the other day. So another stupid Shelby, but you never look back, because there's a lot of things happening in the future. I'm 81, and I got a lot to look forward to.
Now, after that, you got involved with the GT40 program.
After Cobra, Ford decided that what happened is GM, the automobile company signed a contract together that they wouldn't go into racing as a company. Bunky Knudsen and everybody at GM just violated the hell out of it. And Henry Ford was a nice, decent, honest person. He tried to live by it and made Ford live by it for 3 or 4 years, and we were just getting the hell beat out of us. So we took the Cobras and won the world championship, but that wasn't the greatest thing that ever happened. So Don Fry was at Ford. He went to Ferrari and tried to buy them. Fell apart over some, they wanted to go to Indianapolis or something. Don wasn't successful, so he came home and called me and says, Mr. Ford wants us to build a car. And we built it, and for a couple of years we kind of fell on our face. But about the 3rd year, we saw that we were doing real good, and we probably could have won Le Mans, but they decided to rebuild the engines at Ford just before Le Mans, and they got some weak head studs, and they all blew up. Well, Henry Ford and Edsel, his son, were at Le Mans. And what happened was they looked around at their husband and father and says, is that the best we can do? Ford Motor Company bring 200 people to Le Mans and fall on our face like this? So that September, Mr. Ford called Leo Beebe and Don Fry and I into his office and says, well, boys, what do you think you can do as far as winning Le Mans next year? We said, well, Mr. Ford, we think we can put a plan together that we'd have a chance. And he pulled out of his drawer 3 name tags with our names on it and says, Ford wins Le Mans in 1966. Well, that caused immediate dysentery. Le Mans was 9 months away. But there's never been a program like that. And I'm so happy to have been a part of that, because You couldn't have a program like that at General Motors. You couldn't have a program like that anywhere except Ford Motor Company, because Mr. Ford ran Ford Motor Company. And now you never know who runs any of them, except we got Billy Ford back running Ford, which is wonderful. And we probably, in '66, we probably spent a couple $100 million winning Le Mans, plus what interdepartment transfers and so forth. There's no telling what it costs. We won Le Mans '66, '67. They outlawed us. Our old 5-liter under John Wyer's guidance won it the next 2 years. And Mr. Ford pulled the plug on racing. And rightfully so, because the '70s we spent all our money trying to meet emissions and testing and safety. So performance went away in this country until '80s.
Let me get back to the 60s just a bit. While you were winning at Le Mans with the GT40 program, you were also helping them with their Mustangs. How did you go from these international sports cars to helping them build the...
Well, they came out with a Mustang, and Lee Iacocca thought that it ought to be a sport car, and Ford's guys tried to make it a sport car, and something happened. They failed. So Iacocca called me one day and says, we sure want to make this a sport car. Says, my guys said we couldn't do it. Do you think we can? I said, well, I might. So I called a friend of mine that ran Sport Car Club of America, and I said, what would it take for this thing to build a sport car? He said, boy, that's such a wonderful attitude. Says, those guys from Ford came in telling me we're going to make a sport car out of this. And says, I'll tell you very simply. Said, put a more powerful engine in it, put bigger brakes, improve the suspension, take the rear seat out and throw it away. That's about all. So I called Iacocca and told him, yeah, I could do it, but I needed $15,000. Well, the bean counters thought they had killed that program because they hated anything with racing, you know, the bean counters at Ford, General Motors, Chrysler. Most of it had to be done under the table anyway. And they cut me to $1,500, and we built the GT350. And Chuck Cantwell, Ken Miles, Jerry Titus, they all broke their backs for 6 months, and we wound up beating the Corvettes in their class in the SCCA 6-7 years with the Mustang. And we built along the way 20,000 of them, and had a wonderful run. That was fun. I didn't want to do it in the first place because really I was a racer. I thought I had to go racing. I realize now once you win something and you're known as a racer, you don't need to be a racer, because if you're on top, all you can do is go down. And I'm still building cars, building old Cobras.
We just saw something out here too. It's a Hertz or a Hertz Cobra Mustang. Now, what was that? You could go rent a racer? Was that something you were involved in?
You're talking about a Hertz.
Hertz.
Yeah, you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
Peyton Kramer worked at Ford. He was a bean counter, and he came out, he was our sales manager. He came in one day and says, I know the guy that runs Hertz. Says, I think I can go sell him 100 of these GT350s. Well, I said, that'd be wonderful if you could do that, because we only planned on building about 500 of them that year. He called me from New York and said, I sold him 1,000. I said, that's great. How in the hell are we gonna build them? So I sat down with all the guys. That's the most wonderful group of people that ever lived in a small automobile company. They wanted them by January the 1st. Well, at the time, there was a rule that tires had to be so much rayon cord, so much hard rubber to stand 130 miles an hour. I don't remember the details of it. We had these hard tires. We had these racing brakes on it, and they really were race cars that a few nutcases drove on the street. So we delivered the first 200 of them just before January the 1st in New York, and they had a big line of customers backed up. They took those cars, and the next day a big ice storm hit, and 40 of them got totaled. A bunch of them got bent up, and the president of Hertz, God, I wish I could think of his name, called me and he says, Shelby, I wish you'd come get these some bitches because it ain't working, and I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my job. Anyway, we sold them 1,000. They kept them about 6 months. But the real problem was they'd take these things, people would take these things and rent them, go to the drag strip, win them a trophy, take the engine out and put a regular little $200 Mustang engine in them and bring them back. So we wound up building 1,700 that year, I think, though, and next few years we built 5,000 or 6,000 of them, and the darn things are selling for more money than I ever dreamed that they would. I don't know why, but there's a bunch of them out here right where we are now.
And people love them. People love them. So you did that then with the 500 and all of that?